Hello again, FutureWorks. I'm really glad to be here today. We're so excited to bring Trevor Noah onto the stage in just a few minutes. For those without access to the internet or cable television for the better part of a past decade, Trevor Noah is one of the most successful comedians in the world and was the host of the Emmy Award-winning The Daily Show on Comedy Central, where he tackled hard-hitting issues with equal parts levity and grace. Not to mention, Trevor is also the best-selling author of Born a Crime, which delves into many of the captivating stories and lessons from his South African childhood. Now, before we invite Trevor to the stage, I'm actually going to share a little bit of my own journey. For those of you who don't know, my pronouns are she, her, and queen. And yes, that makes me some sort of royalty, but you know what's even better than being a queen? Being a star. Trevor and I are both share some star status in more ways than one. Today, we're talking about stars. Stars stand for skilled through alternative routes, which in simpler terms just means that we skip the whole bachelor degree thing. Stars represent a massive talent pool. Roughly half of the US workforce. That's 70 million people and counting. Stars are in every sector of the labor market, from travel and hospitality to retail and healthcare, IT, HR, talent acquisition, manufacturing. I think you get the picture. I'm thinking yes. Stars also make 75% less than those with a college degree over a lifetime. At Indeed, we have a pretty famous mantra. We believe that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. When I was just starting my career, someone took a chance on me and gave me an opportunity that led me to this very stage. My first job was at a Black-owned flower shop. I was 14 years old. I worked in retail throughout high school and sometimes having two jobs when I wasn't playing sports. I didn't get a degree. I didn't get any internships, and my career started during the first dot-com bubble and burst. I landed jobs in operations and startups that don't exist anymore, but when that bubble burst, I got laid off for the first time in my life, and for the first time in my life, I was out of work, and with the exception of when I had my son for a few months. I couldn't find work. And even though I had the skills and the expertise, I was turned down because I didn't have a college degree. I was out of work for 6 months. I had to move back in with my parents. I couldn't sustain myself or my son, and I was ashamed. Now, through a friend, I finally landed a job, and I went from making $90,000 a year to $11.75 an hour. After spending a few years job hopping and testing out roles like claims adjuster, executive assistant, and chief of staff. Shout out to my chief of staff, Molly, that's in the room. There it is. I met a mentor who took me under their wing and prepared me for more technical opportunities. My degree, or lack thereof, didn't matter. What mattered is that I had the intellectual curiosity to learn and the skills to get the job done. That is why our mission is so personal to me. At Indeed, we strive to create a world where job seekers everywhere have equal opportunity to find jobs. A world where employers everywhere are focused on what matters and hire equitably. A world of work that works for everyone. That is why we're on a journey to help 30 million people facing barriers get hired by the year 2030. We have helped nearly 7 million job seekers facing barriers get hired through the end of March of 2024. Now, this progress represents new opportunities, not just for stars, but also for people who face other barriers, such as people with disabilities and people with criminal records. We'll reach our goal of 30 million by transforming hiring to be skills first. If you can do the job, you should get the job, regardless of where or how you gained your skills. And it's not just good for job seekers. Skills first hiring opens up untapped pools of talented, diverse workers and finds you a better fit for the job. So we're here to help. As you close out your day, please be sure, if you haven't already, to stop by the activation with our partners at Opportunity at Work and tear the paper ceiling. Now, Trevor has been a vocal advocate for fostering equal opportunities to find fulfillment as well, creating the Trevor Noah Foundation in 2018 to improve equitable access to quality education for underserved youth in South Africa. These initiatives lead to a better world of work and ultimately a better future for all. To dig into these efforts and a whole lot more, please join me in welcoming Trevor Noah to the stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. And good afternoon, Queen.
Thank you, Trevor. It's okay, you all can clap and stuff. It's cool. Thank you, in the corner. Okay. So, Trevor, can you shed some light on your own career journey thus far, from growing up in South Africa to your early comedy days in the US?
Oh, wow. I'll try and shrink it down as much as possible. It's interesting when you say my career journey, because I was listening to you speaking about stars, and I've never necessarily seen it as a career because it was never shaped as one. When I was done with high school, I wanted to study anything computer related at university. My mother didn't have the money, and so she said to me, I'll try and save as much or lend or borrow as much money as possible from the bank. But she said, I'll make a deal with you. If you pay half of your tuition, I'll come up with the rest. And then I was like, but where do I get the money? And she was like, well, yeah, that's my position as well.
That's the point.
And I was like, I don't know if I like this. And so from that moment onwards, I've been on a journey to earn enough money to go to university. And it really was just one step to the next. And every time I would get another job, I would think, okay, now I guess I have enough to go to university. And I'd be like, well, let me get a little bit more so I have a little cushion, then I can go to university. And let me do a little more, and then I'll get more of a cushion, and then get more of a cushion. And university costs keep going up, so I haven't stopped. No, but jokes aside, I actually did that, and I just found myself moving from one job to the next. I found myself in positions where, like yourself, I was applying myself, but didn't have a college degree, and so I went where the work would take me. And comedy started as a hobby, still is one of my favorite things to do, and it was just where I went to enjoy myself, to be creative. It wasn't an industry in South Africa. It still is fledgling, even though it's been that many years. And so I just went from one show to the next, one club to the next, and one day this little website started up called YouTube, and they said you could put videos on it.
Small website.
Tiny little website.
Yeah.
And I put some of my videos on there. And then one day I got a call from someone in another country. And they said, we'd like you to come and do comedy here. And I got on a plane and I went and did comedy in Australia. And I went and I did comedy in the United Arab Emirates and then in the UK. And then one day it was in America. And all of these were just like tiny little dominoes and tiny little steps that led me to the places I guess people know me in now. And that's, hosting the Daily Show, etc. But those were, funny enough, that's when I was already in the world of comedy. That's when I had found a more established career in comedy. But before then, it was just me piecemealing together one job to the next.
You just saw it as opportunities.
That's all it is,
You were
really.
going to. Yeah, I love that. Speaking of what I love this quote from your book, Born a Crime. If you don't have it yet, go get it. You shared that people love to say, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. What they don't say is, and it would be nice if you gave him a fishing rod. I think that sentiment is so powerful, especially when we're addressing skills-first hiring and providing equal opportunities to stars like ourselves. What are some of the most valuable fishing rods that you were given early in your, maybe not career, but just early in your journey?
Wow. In my life, it's taken on a variety of forms. When I was young, one of the first fishing rods I got was a friend of mine in high school, Andrew Stokes, was a kid who was really on the cutting edge of technology. In fact, I think when he left South Africa and he moved to the UK, he did that because he sold an app. And this is when apps were still a new idea. We're talking, this was maybe 2002 when he did this. So even then it was a new idea. But when we were in high school, this kid was just in the world of tech. And because of that, he used to burn CDs for people, right? When nobody could do it. Nobody could do it. It was just like the craziest concept. And, he ran this little pirate business and people would buy these discs from him, and he was he was a nerd, a sweet kid, but then sometimes people wouldn't pay him, and he didn't know what to do, and I used to buy discs from him, and I'd sell them to other people, and then one day, he told me about his problems, and I said to him, I said, why don't you hand off collections to me? I said,
okay.
I said, I'll do collections, not because I fight or anything. I was just I think I can handle people better, and I know who I can trust and who I can't, and I'll figure it out. I'll make this work. And so I said, you give me all of your bad debtors, and I'll sort that side of the business out.
Wow.
And in exchange, you give me a discount on the discs that I want.
Okay.
And so we did that, and for years it worked well. It was really fantastic. And then one day we used to go to his house and hang out with his family, and he'd show me computers and the internet, and I was like, what is this world? It's insane. And then one day, during recess at school, he called me aside and he's like, hey, I need to meet with you. And I was like, hey, what's going on? He's like, hey, man, I've decided to retire from the business. And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, I don't know if this is for me. I want to focus more on coding and programming. And I was like, but where will we get our CDs? And I was like, the business, Andrew, what are we going to do with the business?
You had a good thing going.
Yeah, and he said to me, he said, well, listen, he said, why don't you take it over? And I said, okay, but how? I said, I don't have a computer. I can't afford a computer. I make enough money to just have literally money to buy food at the cafeteria. And it's not like I was a mogul or anything. And he said to me, he said, well, then let's do this. He said, why don't I will give you all the equipment. All right, I'll give it to you. You can pay me back when you pay me back. No interest, no anything like that. Just take it, use it all, and then pay me back when you pay me back. And that was one of the first moments I can think of where somebody gave me a fishing rod, where Andrew had taught me all the skills. I was able to, copy discs. I knew how to run the software to burn CDs. I knew everything. But had he not done that, I wouldn't have had that business. I wouldn't have been able to execute on it. And I think that's really the first time I realized the importance of that equity, of being put in the position of being given the skill, whether it's physical or something that isn't. And in my life, I've been given those opportunities. One of the more recent ones was, Jon Stewart bringing me on at the Daily Show. That's like a world where it's like, yes, I can have the talent as a comedian, I can have the work ethic and everything else, but then it's somebody saying to me, hey, why don't I give you a platform? Because you cannot just have a platform on your own. And this is before TikTok is big, and this is before people are consuming the way they are now. And so throughout my life, I've encountered people who have shown me the importance of giving somebody not just the opportunity itself or the opportunity to try to be part of something, but giving them the tool necessary to be competent in joining that industry or that world. And so I've always tried to pay it forward and do the same thing for others.
Love that. I love that. Along that line, your foundation has been equipping vulnerable youth with the education, life skills, social capital necessary, fishing rods, if you will, to pursue further opportunities beyond high school since 2018. With some valuable fishing rods under their belt, what have some of these young adults been able to achieve?
So it's been interesting, and it's been a learning experience for myself and the team who do an amazing job of running my foundation, because we've come to realize there is no one pill that ends, the gap that's created in the world of haves and have-nots. In South Africa, we have a strange situation where our country spends a larger percentage of its GDP than most nations around the world on education. But unfortunately, due to a variety of factors, we haven't seen that improvement in the education outcomes. And we see a country where for a long time people weren't given access to work or to education because of the apartheid system, created a huge backlog, and now that backlog has never been able to catch up. It's been a deluge. And so what we tried to do at the foundation at first was just help kids get access to education, and this was a very naive point of view that I had, was just like, get kids educated and it'll work out. And that's all we set out to do. And we went to schools, we found schools that needed resources, and we helped them accordingly. And then we realized, okay, the kids were now getting a better education, but then they would reach out to us and they would say, hey, thanks to you, we graduated, and now we have nothing to do. And we started realizing that this class that was graduating was left in a world where before they had no hope and no opportunities, and now they had all hope and no opportunities. And so what the foundation has started to do now is we've started to shift our perspective, and we've tried to look at different ways to address the issue. So, with teachers, we look at upskilling teachers, and we look at enhancing and improving the education that they get, because oftentimes teachers get forgotten. And we try and find ways to supplement their income or the access that they have to knowledge bases. And then for the children, what we work on now is connecting the children to opportunities directly. So we've realized that it's not enough to just give the kid an education. Oftentimes, the connection to the opportunity is more important than just the qualification. And so we've got mentorship programs, we've got companies that come in and find these kids and say, okay, come and join us at this company, come and work here for 6 months, come and have a paid internship where you'll develop some of the skills that we actually need in the company and we don't find in the country, because it's a chicken and the egg situation. The companies need the people with the skills, the people don't have the skills, and they need the money and the experience to get the skills, but then they can't get the experience because the companies who want to give them experience need people with the skills. And it's like, okay, but if you need skills to have the job, and if the people who want you to get a job need you to have skills, then when do you interrupt the cycle?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're aiming to do now, and that's all we push for, is to take kids who are in our programs and we say, let's get you into that world, let's get you learning, let's get you upskilled, let's get you face-to-face as well with people who become your mentors or your future employers, so that you're not broaching a completely new world once you've graduated from either the secondary or the tertiary school system.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. How did your experience as the host of The Daily Show influence your views on worldwide affairs, justice, and equity?
Oh, watching the news every day made me a much more optimistic person.
It always works for me.
Yeah, no,
it always works for me.
It made me feel like we're heading in the right direction, and life is good. I think it depended on the days. Sometimes hosting the Daily Show was frustrating because it meant that I existed in a world where I was consciously absorbing the cyclical nature of political engagement. Like I've engaged in far more politics than any human being ever should. I wouldn't even recommend it to anyone. Because most of it, I'll be honest with you, most of it is a farce. Most of it is a game played amongst politicians themselves. The frustrating truth is in America, most politicians are spending all their time trying to be re-elected and not spending any of their time governing for the people who've elected them. And so now when you're watching this, when you're watching this, you can't help but get frustrated. I've seen people say the same thing over the span of a decade. I've seen people have the same fights. I've seen the same talking points. I've seen the same issues. It literally becomes like watching, if you've ever watched a soap opera, which I did as a kid because I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, at some point you start noticing the patterns.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, they're gonna break up and then they're gonna get back together and then they're gonna think that person's dead, but they're not, and then this is gonna,
there's an evil twin somewhere.
Yes, it's always an evil twin.
It's always an evil twin.
And that's what I realized, But I will say I'm grateful because one of the most important things I learned working on The Daily Show and being in that world for so long, the world of observing politics and news, was that we should never lose sight of the fact that issues are real, politics is imaginary, right? Because issues are a real thing, and then politics is an imagined way to address the real thing. And so what I realized over a long time was that, issues in the stupidest way, let's say a pothole in the road, that is an issue. It is factual. There is a hole that is in the road. Now the politics is arguing around how do we fix that hole? Who gets the deal to do it? And should it be the public or should it be the private? Should it be the person who made the hole? Or was the contractor who built the road? That's now us politicking. Yeah. But the issue is still real.
Yeah, meanwhile, my tire's flat.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And so now what that has made me more conscious of is when I speak to people, when I engage with people, is now I spend more time trying to focus on the issues that connect people than the politics that divides people. Because I think if you do that, you'll come to realize that people aren't as polarized as we're led to believe. It's just that people are existing in a world where they're fighting over solutions when in fact they share the same issues. And they just don't realize it because we're sort of handling it back to front, which is, I think, partially created by the political system and maybe partially created by news that wants to drum this up to make it more interesting. But it did teach me to become a little more laser focused when looking at a problem, to think about what the actual problem is and try and ignore the noise around it.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. So what do you see as the role of the entertainment industry in shaping the public's understanding of systemic issues and driving scalable change for a better future?
That's a fascinating question because I think we take for granted how much of our perception of the world is shaped by the entertainment industry. A lot of people think that they're immune to it, and yet you'll be shocked at how much you're not. Every idea that we possess of the world that isn't from our direct interaction with the world is oftentimes shaped by entertainment. Even when we have these discussions about AI, half of the reaction that we have as people comes from watching movies like Terminator or Star Trek or Star Wars, or that's where half of our brain goes to. You go like, artificial intelligence, and you go like, oh, C-3PO, R2-D2, and you're just like, oh no, Arnold Schwarzenegger, oh no, the T-2000, but where did we get that from? And I think in some ways we shouldn't forget that our idea of the future was shaped in the past. And the past couldn't have imagined the future that we're in. And some things have been right, and that leads us to have like a confirmation bias around like, they knew, but they didn't. They spray it out, and then we see the things that match up, and we think that they knew. But we should always be conscious of the fact that we are actively creating the future. It is not a predefined future. It's actively being created. And so I think that's where the entertainment industry plays a key role, is the entertainment industry tells you who a potential president could or could not be just in a show. When you're watching that as a kid, you're not going, that is the way the world is or isn't. You're saying that's a possibility. When I watched like Charlie's Angels, I don't realize at that time that I'm just like, yeah, okay, women can kick ass. But this is something that's going into your head in a beautiful way that's shaping your idea of the possibilities that the world inherently holds. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And so I think the entertainment industry has a responsibility and an opportunity to consciously do that, to create, to inspire, to make people think beyond themselves. Like, You know, I think of how many kids dreamed of having a job because they saw that job on TV. I remember the age of like, you know, procedural dramas and how many kids were like, I want to be a lawyer. And it was like, why? Oh, they were watching Ally McBeal, you know? And they were watching shows where like lawyers looked cool. And that's the power that entertainment actually has, is it has the ability to give you an idea of a world that may influence either your desire to join it or how you feel about it, you know? And I think that's something that's really important for the world, that we should never take for granted. And parents should think about this as well. It's like, what do you want your kids to see of the world?
That's right.
What do you want them to think the possibilities of the world are? A lot of that is shaped by entertainment, and I think we should never take that for granted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you mentioned AI.
I did.
You said in the past that you are an optimist when it comes to AI. As am I. I'm excited about it. I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit. What about AI excites you?
So I think the thing I've always said is I'm an eternal optimist, full stop, not about AI. And what I mean by that is my brain has always, and I don't know where I got this from, but my brain has always been able to continuously expand on any type of graph that I'm seeing, because I believe the more I zoom out, the more I zoom out, the more I zoom out, there's always an opportunity for it to change. You know, so like even, I was reading an article the other day, and it was like, times are bad for NVIDIA. The stock is seeing its worst times this summer. Its stock has dropped 9%. And then I was like, what? And then I went in, and then I read it, and then I looked at their stock, and I zoomed out, and I was like, oh, but it's up 150% this year. And small moments like that, I think I've always had in life where I've gone, if you're not careful, if you zoom too far into a moment, you don't know where you are in relation to anything. And if you zoom too far out, you don't have perspective. But playing with that range in any situation changes your level of optimism or pessimism, right? You can say, this is the worst moment in history. And it's like, well, which history are you referring to?
Right.
Your life, this decade, this century, which history?
Today?
Exactly, exactly. And so when I look at AI, what excites me most are the possibilities to scale ideas far beyond what humans have ever been capable of. You know, I think there are ways that AI can help us to achieve things and democratize ideas and tools that we really would have never been able to do. So for instance, like in education, where I spend a lot of my time, I dream of a world where every kid has access to a tutor, because we've seen through countless studies, one of the best ways to achieve your goals in education is to have one-on-one tutelage, right? And many kids who have that, you see the results. Most kids cannot afford that, and we also don't have enough people in the world to tutor everyone. We can do it with an AI. Everyone at some point could have in their education an AI that knows them and caters and you know what I mean, tailors the education to them. What a beautiful world that would be, where you're learning math the way you need to. And think about how many people have the story where I could say to you, why did you love that subject in school as a child? I promise you now, 7 to 8 out of 10 people would say, man, I had a teacher who really just like, they made it fun and they made it interesting and they knew how to teach it. You connected with it because of that person. But what if everybody had that person? That excites me in AI. I remember, like, you know, going to Johns Hopkins and like listening and like talking to the team there about the work they're doing in breast cancer reduction and detection. AI has immensely, like, I mean, it's tremendously upscaled what people are capable of, you know? Because there's no doctor who can bring up every single scan they've ever done, no matter how good the radiologist. And that's exactly what every patient needs, is a true understanding of what their body's condition is now and what that may lead to. And as they've implemented AI, they've been able to reduce how many women get a biopsy unnecessarily. They've been able to reduce how many people are falsely diagnosed positive or negative, and this leads to better health outcomes for everybody. And I look at that on a cost level, on a health level, on a human level, on a familial level, on a hospital stress level, all of it, it improves. And I think this goes to everywhere in every industry. That excites me. It doesn't mean that I don't have doubts. It doesn't mean that I don't think we should be wary and be responsible. But I don't think we have to live in a world where it's either this or only that.
Yeah.
I think two things can be true at the same time. And so I'm very optimistic about what AI can bring. And I'm also always cautiously pessimistic about the things that can go wrong with it as well.
Yeah. It can be exciting. It can be a little bit scary. Speaking of scary, what place do you think politics has in our workplaces?
So this is a difficult one because, you know, it's always like, what element of politics? And when I say we, now I'll refer to, let's say, living in America. Now, we live in a country, and this is starting to spread around the world, where politics has become national and popularized in a way that I don't think has served the people, right? Most of the things, not all, but most of the things that presidential candidates are arguing about are on a macro level and may not really affect you in the way that you think they will, especially in the short term. Don't get me wrong, obviously economic ideas and trade, etc., those things will have effects, but you'll be shocked at how much politics is local. And I think when we lose sight of that, we then lose sight of how we are all living in these microclimates, for lack of a better term. You know, and so in many ways, I think politics has now been this larger thing where people step into a building and they go like, I'm red, I'm blue. And it's like, okay, but what aspect of that are you, and what aspect of that are you not? Right? And I think when we step into the workplace, something we should never take for granted is that the workplace in many ways is an artificial village and an artificial community that has many real benefits, right? But like, I don't think that's always the place for us to engage in everything that we live in our lives.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it just extends to the workplace. I think people are struggling with this in everything. Like maybe I'm old enough now to remember it, but I remember a time when people didn't start conversations with politics. You know, and I think there's a reason for that. If you start a conversation with the thing that separates you, I promise you now, you're generally never going to get to the thing that connects you. But if you start with the things that connect you, you will then find that politics at the end could be a surprise. You know, so you literally start with the things that people laugh about as like bad small talk, but they connect people. Weather. The reason weather is such a wonderful thing to talk to other people about is because you're all experiencing it. You know, wow, it's hot outside. It really is. I couldn't even go for a walk. I know, me too. Oh my God, I had to walk my kid. It was just so I know, my child was complaining. All of a sudden you're connecting. You're sharing something that I know seems really stupid, but it's reminding you that you are existing in the same place and in the same reality. And then talk about something else. How are your children? How are my children? All of a sudden you're connecting around the fact that you're parents. And then you connect about something else. Connect about something that's in the workplace. Connect about something that you work with. Connect about passions, sports, activities, hobbies, music that you listen to, movies that you watch. You'll be shocked at how all of those things are the building blocks that lead us to the place where we can actually have discourse around politics. I don't think anyone is in the position to talk about politics before they know the other person that they're talking to in an intimate environment. Because all that happens is you say your politics, I say my politics, we jump straight to the biggest thing that disconnects us, and that's it, we've shut down.
Yeah.
But some of the most interesting conversations, I've seen are the ones where people aren't allowed to talk politics first, and are forced to discuss their human issues. You'll be shocked at how many things people overlap with, and then at the end of it go, oh wait, you vote like that? Oh, oh wow. I didn't realize that. And one of the more interesting stories we got to do on the Daily Show once was, we started noticing that there were many cities around America where they don't allow somebody running for mayor to run as a Democrat or as a Republican or any party affiliation. You just have to run, and you just have your platform. You say, this is what I propose, people can vote for you or not vote for you. But nowhere does it say you're Republican or Democrat, nowhere. And in those cities, far beyond every other city in America, time and time again, people who were voted in oftentimes by people who labeled themselves differently. So you found a Democratic mayor winning in a Republican city, and you found a Republican mayor winning in a Democratic city because they didn't have the label first. And when you took the label away, all of a sudden they connected the dots with the constituents that they were speaking to, and these people found commonalities that then helped them move forward. And so I think that's something to consider in the workplace, is like, maybe the question isn't like, what is the place of politics? Maybe my question to that question would be, what is the purpose of the politics? You know, because if the purpose is just to bring something in that creates some sort of like friction, I don't think it helps. And I think there are already issues in a workplace, because any space that involves a lot of people coming together and sharing it is going to involve its own politics, ironically.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to be careful of just bringing additional things into it. Like I'll leave you with this. This is like a small thing that we learned in South Africa. I play a soccer game with my friends, and every time I'm there, everyone joins up and we play this game. And one day, I don't even remember who noticed this, but we realized that every time people bring other family members or spouses or girlfriends or partners or anyone to the game, there were more fights.
Really?
And when we came to the game with nobody, everyone just came and played, and there was no onlooker from your life, we had no fights.
So are people just showing out?
And what I realized, and I mean, this was just me finding a correlation between this and maybe the workplace and these environments, is sometimes we shouldn't take for granted that if we focus on the thing that we're there to do together, we find a way to get along together. But then when we bring the external, we try and show up to that thing, and we try and, sort of find a way to like signal to that thing that we're doing something here, and then we create a conflict that's oftentimes unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I don't think that compromise or connection comes from the conflict. I think it comes from finding the commonality. So when we were just there as friends who were there to play the game, we played the game. When our friends were there to see us, we then had to show that we didn't like that call, or we were stronger, or we didn't get pushed around, or we could score when we could. And I think that's sometimes what politics does to people, is like, if you're not careful, you bring it with you, and then you act out for it before you act accordingly or like genuinely for yourself.
Yeah.
And then you lose the opportunity to work cohesively with the people that you're actually in a space with.
Oh, 100% agree with you, Trevor. I think when we're thinking about creating a safe space, it's really important to emphasize that we're creating a safe space at work.
Right.
All of the reasons that you said. And as companies, we have to make a commitment to provide a safe space where all employees feel like they belong. And when we talk about things like protected classes, like race and gender and all of those things, we're actually talking about protection from things like racism, misogyny, ableism, all the isms and phobias. And if anyone brings up topics that causes like a hostile work environment, there are repercussions to that, because you're not focused on creating an environment where everyone can thrive. And I feel like we have lied to folks and we've said, bring your whole self to work. That is a lie. You don't bring your whole self. You don't want to see all of this, right? Bring your authentic self, bring your best self, because when we do that, we create workplaces where people not only feel like they belong, but they can thrive. Trevor, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.